Hello and welcome back to the show. Today, we actually have a little bit of a business, procedural services based show, talking about cancellations today. This is something I've been talking a little bit about on my Instagram stories because it seems to be all the rage at the moment. All I'm hearing is all of these people canceling all the time, not showing up for appointments, and then just obviously ruining your day because I know it's annoying. I'm actually fairly lucky in a sense that my cancellations last minute are actually fairly minimal and it's usually for a pretty valid excuse. But I have a lot of people that reschedule at the moment quite frequently, but they're usually within, like 3 or 4 days out. So can't be complaining about that too much because I am actually getting notice and I can move people around if I need to. But first of all, before we get stuck into the show, I really want to say thanks to everybody for sharing and supporting the show at the moment. There's been quite a few of you who have shared the show either on your social media page or have done so in some Facebook groups, which is super, super helpful for me. We've got quite a lot of new people listening because of that. So thank you. If you are welcome, if you are welcome, if you are new here, welcome. I'm so excited to have this platform to be able to bring like-minded people into my community and share all my passions from women's health all the way to the personal development side as well as the business side. So welcome. I hope that you are getting a lot out of this show. And if you are, please do share this among your community or share it with a friend who you think might also find it valuable. A little bit of an update. I'm in, what are we in, month 5 of the mentorship, which is exciting because next month is the hormones module, which is super exciting. So I've been doing that in the background, but I'm always looking at ways to refine both the mentorship side of my business as well as my clinical side of my business, which is my obviously face-to-face, well, it's not face-to-face, online work. And I find when I'm in these phases of wanting to progress and grow that I look and see other businesses from different perspectives and I want to say judge, but I judge my experience within those businesses based on um, how I would like my clients to feel when they're coming into my business. So I feel like you start to notice ways that other businesses do things that either don't resonate with you or that you think are done exceptionally well. And this is a conversation that I feel like comes up a little bit inside the mini business mentorship group that I have. We talk a lot about like optimizing your business and making it an extremely I want to say great service. That's a terrible way to describe it, but how can you increase your service and your cost and everything that you do so that more people come into your business and you grow it? So we talk a lot about it. And I feel like when you are experiencing, like you're on the other end and you're experiencing a service, you can really tell the people that actually care a lot about how they deliver, how they treat their customers, how they communicate to customers, the service that you get, the little extra bits and pieces versus those people that maybe don't run their business like that. And you just feel like they don't give a shit about you, basically. And I've had a couple of recent experiences like this, and it really just puts things into perspective for me about like, um, you know, keeping on my toes with how I want people to feel when they come into my world. And I'm serving them and they're, I want to say spending their money on me and choosing to come with me. So I think if you're not looking at that at the moment in your own service, whether you work for yourself or whether you work in someone else's business, it's really important to realize that people choose you and people are spending their money on you and your service. And you shouldn't take that for granted and look at ways that you can keep that person extremely happy so that you do a really good job with them, you help them, they tell more people about you, and you get a great brand or reputation. So something for you to take away on that front. But I don't know, the conversation that's coming up, cancellations. I want to touch on cancellations because I feel like this is a really hard one to deal with and a lot of people really do struggle with it. But I wanted to break this episode up into like 2 parts. So part 1, we're going to be discussing how do we actually prevent the cancellation from happening in the first place? And the second part we're going to talk about is how do we actually deal with it when cancellations do occur. So I did have a little question box up on my Instagram story about this, and a couple of you wrote in with some things that you'd like to know that ranged anywhere from when's a good time to actually have implement a cancellation policy, like what type of notice is sort of realistic. Could I role play between me and a client what it would sound like if I actually enforced a cancellation policy? And there was another couple of questions around just tell us everything because we hate this, basically. And then some that were like, don't even know where to start with cancellations. I feel like they're every day. So there was actually quite a few of you that shared that. And those were like sort of like the baseline themes. But first of all, we're going to talk on preventing cancellations from happening, because I feel like if you do this really well, it makes the actual cancellations one less, but also easier to manage. So I've kind of broken this down into a couple of different dot points. And the first one is that I really believe that you have to attract the right people into your service or business. And this is where I think building your branding around either your business or your personal brand, which is you as a clinician if you're in someone else's business, is really important, because you really ideally want people to be coming into the service to see you specifically, because obviously you've attracted that by marketing to them, and they're probably a lot more invested in you and what you do and what you're offering in sense of care for them. And so that is already an easier way to get people to value what you're doing a lot more and actually want to participate in this. And they're probably not going to be canceling on you unless it was actually a reason for it and they couldn't make the consult, rather than having these cancellations who just can't be bothered to turn up or don't care anymore, don't value what you're actually doing. They've maybe been referred by someone and they don't know why they're even coming, or maybe they're not even paying for it because they're funded by something else. So I think when you are thinking about attracting the right people to your business, it needs to be the people that are resonating with your business. So they value you, they know that why they're coming to you. Maybe they're private paying clients. This is actually why I'm pretty big on private paying clients, because I feel like they're actually making a pretty personal choice to come and see you rather than just getting sent somewhere. So I do feel like there's a couple of things in that particular area that really help with um, I guess, reducing cancellations in the first place. The second point is that you really want to communicate the expectations to your client. And it's not just about expectations of turning up to consults, but it's about what that journey of your service looks like for them. How many sessions are they expected to be doing with you? What is the time frame for that? How often will they need to see you? What results can they be expecting in the first session, the second, the third, the fourth, all the way to maybe the end? So like if they're not getting results initially, is this actually something that is expected? So for me, the first block of exercises aren't going to see much change in symptoms for my clients, drastic enough for them to go like, this is working. So if they're doubting the actual exercise prescription, whether it's helpful or not, based on that, they're probably more likely to tap out and cancel. So I think if you're explaining that initially and setting those expectations, it's really important. Even just like the commitment level of the home program, what that might look like for them. And I think if you are setting up your service as a program where all of this is explained to them at the beginning, in terms of the expectation, then this can really work well, because people can opt in knowing all the expectations from the beginning, or opt out if they think it's not for them, rather than traditional, I guess, services where they're booked in for an initial. You kind of know the treatment process and what that looks like for someone, but they're not really sure. So 3 or 4 sessions in, they're like, oh, I've got to keep coming. Sorry, what? Or someone's booked in expecting a 8 week strength program or a home-based program. And they might have a very complex clinical condition where they need to actually see you every single week for 4 or 5 weeks. Before that, you can give them a home program that's maybe safe for them to do. And they're not really expecting that because they don't really understand why they're coming, or you haven't explained to them like you'll have to come back, or this is what we do. So having a program where people can understand exactly what they're signing up to is actually quite helpful in a sense of getting them to commit and be all in on the service. So I think that's another really important point. Another thing that is obvious is actually having a cancellation policy in place. Um, a lot of people kind of have an idea of what that cancellation policy might be that's like in their head, but it's not actually formally written anywhere, nor is it outlined clear enough to the client or patient when they're coming in or inquiring. Now, I really think that this could vary from practice to practice based on maybe if you have a wait list or how you run your services, or maybe how busy you are or how strict that you want to be. And when I asked a lot of questions on the Instagram story about this, there was actually quite a varied response into what that looked like. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I've got them written down here. So if you're watching on YouTube here, you can see me reading my screen. But we've got someone who had an 8-hour cancellation policy with a fair bit of leniency on the first time that they didn't, like they canceled within that 8-hour window. And then that was strict from then on. 8 hours, I think, for me is probably a little bit too short, but I know this population is actually new mums, and we know that new mums often don't have much control over their newborns. So I think that was why the cancellation policy was put in place, to be a bit smaller. But good to know that, sometimes it is about the clientele base itself rather than the actual policy and for you. So you might need to be lenient like that. Charging 100% of the full fee for the consults for any no-shows, and 50% if the notice was given within 24 hours. So that's a pretty fair one. I think a lot of people had that one. Same thing with the next person. However, they also had leeway with the client if they rescheduled to have the consult within that same week. So when we think about maybe filling other spots that might be free for the next day and then still bringing in that income for that week. So for me or a sole trader, and I know a lot of you might work for yourself, sometimes it's actually also about the income that week too. It's not so much like, it is annoying having people cancel, but it also means your income is highly affected. So if you had like a lenient policy where you could actually say, you know what, you can cancel, and I'm happy to fit you in for the rest of that week. However, if you cancel and you can't fit in for that week, or I don't have the time spot available for you, then that's when the cancellation fee is implemented. So that's a pretty good one. 24 hours notice or full fee charge. And another one was a direct debit system where there's 24 hours notice required, or the fee that they've paid in their direct deposit is actually lost. And same thing, can reschedule within the same week. There was conversations I did have with someone in the mentorship who had a 72-hour cancellation policy at her workplace and full strict cancellation fee with full fee. So extremely bigger, I guess, window of time, which is actually quite important if you're someone who has a wait list, because you can then add people in, like call them up 3 days before and say something's become available. So I think it really depends on how you operate your service and the type of clientele that you actually have. But I think those are all pretty well-established cancellation policies. My cancellation policy is actually a little bit different for people who are on my program versus people who are coming for single consults. So single consults incur full fee, charge within 24 hours notice. And those who are on my program, because they're all, I guess, direct debited or prepaid, they can reschedule their consultation. And unless they're those extremely unreliable people who just do it all the time. So most of them do reschedule those consults, though, outside of that 24-hour window. And if it is within the 24 hours, it's a pretty valid reason mostly. I don't have that many that happen in a sense of canceling last minute, because they're in the program and they've signed up for this. So they're actually quite reliable in that sense. And that's what I was going with before when you say you prevent it from setting up your service a little bit differently and set the expectations early. I think another really important point in preventing cancellations in the beginning is using a payment structure to make it easier for you. So like I just explained to you with my program, it's all prepaid. So people are more likely to just like they've already paid for it. So they're going to turn up, number one, but they're also committed. You could also do a deposit fee if you are someone who does like consult by consult work, and that is the cancellation fee. So if they're paying a deposit for the appointment, then they don't show up or they cancel, that can be deducted basically from the fee, so that the next time that they book in, they pay the fee, and that's acting it the same. So I would try, if you run that model, to get people to book in online, or where they have to pay that deposit on booking of the session. Or you could take that initial deposit fee and then have it in like a little holding account, and then at the end or every session they pay in full, and that's still sort of sitting in there as a backup fee. Prepay or direct debit, good way to structure your payments if you can as well. Or if you can store credit card details on a system for them, that means you can just auto charge after they don't show up or if they cancel. So it's easy for you to just charge it for that day, rather than asking someone the next time you see them for that extra $50 or whatever it is that you're charging for your cancellation fee. The other thing that's really important to prevent is reminders. Now, reminders are super important for that reason, especially for the no-show. I feel like it helps the no-shows, but I think you need to also send out more than one, and in the reminder has to have the cancellation policy. So I actually have 3 reminders that go out prior to my consults. One's at 48 hours notice, and in that 48-hour notice, it stipulates the 24-hour cancellation policy, and it gives people the chance to reschedule. So there is actually a reschedule button on there for them to do that. Now, the next 2 are at 12 hours beforehand and then 1 hour beforehand. I don't do the 24-hour one, or I could probably do that, but I chose to do 12 and 1, and that was for 12 hours is now cancellation policy is now in place. You will lose your fee if you cancel at this point in time, and there is no ability for them to reschedule that consult. And then I also have the 1 hour reminder. So the 1 and the 12 hour is usually, I find if you give 24 hours notice, sometimes I feel like people are like, it's a little bit too far out for some of my clients. But I feel like the 48 hours gives them a chance to reschedule. Whereas if you do the 24-hour reminder and they can't make it, and by the time they see the reminder and get to you, it's like still within the window. So I like to give them the chance first and then say it's now in place. So you could, I know, structure that in any way you want. I feel like that's a lot of reminders and probably a little bit annoying. But at the same time, I'm like, you can't say I didn't remind you. The other component, or after you've sent out the reminders, is actually following through with your policy, so that the clients know what to expect from you. So this is a super interesting conversation I had this week in the business mentorship group call that we had. And it was actually about the cancellation policy of one of the girls who has at her workplace. And she was saying that the members or the clients that they see there know how strict the cancellation policy is, and often comment about like, oh, she's a little bit brutal with her cancellations, but they all know what to expect, and they all know that they don't cancel unless they really can't make something, and they understand the notice that is required. So like I said earlier, if you set up the expectation, then people they know, and they're not going to. So like if you're a really strict person, that in itself is going to prevent people from canceling unless they actually can't make it. And by that point, it's usually a pretty valid reason, or they're going to give you the 24 hours notice that you require anyway. So I feel like there's like a bit more respect there when you actually have that strictness about you. Whereas if you don't really enforce it, most people are like, oh, I'll just cancel and hope she doesn't charge me. And I mean, not many people are going to voluntarily say, oh, charge me for that. Like some people do. I have some clients who are like, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to make it. Please charge me for today. I'll just forfeit today's session. Or, and I really value those people because they actually respect me and my time and what I do for them. So it's actually quite nice. But a lot of people will that cancel and say like, not coming today, like not going to, they don't voluntarily offer you money. So I think you have to actually follow through and enforce it. So those are like my top tips for preventing cancellations. Find people that actually value your service and align with the business, attract the right clientele. Communicate the expectations initially to the client on the service and everything involved, as well as the cancellation policy. Have the cancellation policy in place and decide what that is. Use your payment structure as a way to make it easier for you to charge that. Implement reminders, communicate the cancellation policy in the reminders, and then follow through with your policy so that your clients know what to expect. Be the strict person. Now let's move on to what happens when people actually cancel. What do you do? So I would have loved to role play this, and I could, but I don't feel like my acting skills are that good. So I'm just going to say that maybe your client has cancelled. I feel like most of my people that I speak to in this with this topic usually get text reminders that are like, not going to make it today. Sorry. If they say sorry, which we've all been there, some of them don't. And I feel like it's really hard to know, like, you just want to get angry and write back and be like, oh, you're annoying, don't cancel, how rude. But you can't, because it's not exactly ideal as much as you'd want to. So I think it's really important to acknowledge, obviously, sorry that you're not going to make it today. I really appreciate you telling me this. However, because this is within the 24-hour window of your consult time, as per my cancellation policy, you will incur a fee of X dollars. This will be auto charged to your designated card for today. Hopefully you have the credit card details on file, or it will be added to your consult fee for your next consult. I look forward to hearing about how your progress has been going with your home program. I always like to chuck that in at the end, so it looks like I still do care about that, obviously, their results. This message would obviously change based on how you charge people, or I will send you an invoice for whatever this is. I really feel like if you, or your deposit is lost, this is where you would implement however you take payment. So I really feel like it's important to use your as per the cancellation policy, which they already know because hopefully you've already set that expectation up already. You've told them 1,000 times in the reminder, whatever. So that would be how I would deal with it in most scenarios. Now, sometimes it's not that easy. But I feel like the key to actually following through and doing that is the setup process and setting that expectation. So obviously having the cancellation policy in place is good, but communicating it is important. I think if you have a a tick box on maybe like your screening forms that has the cancellation policy and that is required to be ticked off as part of their acknowledgement, maybe it's through the consent form, like however you do your forms, I would have the cancellation policy there in bold writing saying this is what we do, and they have to acknowledge and tick that. So you know they've been told this. When you book people in for the next consult, I think there's also a really big advantage of having like a spiel that you say, yeah, just going to book you in for your next consultation. This is the time and the date. Just a reminder that if you can't make this session and you do need to cancel, we do require 24 hours notice. Otherwise, there is a cancellation fee of X dollars incurred. So please do let us know. It gives us a chance to fill that spot for somebody else that might want to come in at a different time, and we don't actually lose out in the business side of things. So really important as well. I also feel like that they also need to be told in their initial consultation about the actual expectation of the policy and the follow through. I explain this all the time. So I feel like you have to repeat this all the time. When they have their initial, even if when they inquire, I tell people when they inquire, I have it written on all of my welcome emails that go out when they first book any consult or when they're assigned to a program. It's written within the reminder emails that I send out. I've got the button removed so that they can't cancel the appointment and they actually have to email me with this so then I can remind them this will incur a cancellation fee. Otherwise, you can still come if it's a big deal for them. But I feel like the key is to following through and actually saying there's a fee is setting it up from the beginning. So try and have that set up as much as you possibly can. Now, for us single traders, sole traders, whatever, we don't have a receptionist. There's no middleman who is saying, hey, Jane, you missed your session last week. We're adding this fee to your bill. Which I feel like is so much better. And sometimes I have thought about like in the emails that I would just write from a fake admin person, but haven't done that yet. but I'll keep you posted if that happens. But I feel like having that receptionist or something would be so much more helpful. So, sorry about this sun if you're watching on the YouTube, but it's a bit bright. There's like afternoon sun, glorious, but it's in my eyes. But yeah, if you're a sole trader and you're working for yourself, this is a really difficult conversation to have. And if you are having a hard time having this conversation, then I would really try and have this through written text. So whether that's an email or whether it's a text message, I think you could create like a template. So have like what I've explained earlier written down somewhere that's in your notes or something where you can copy and paste it over so that you don't really have to think a lot about it and you don't have to linger on what you're going to say. And you know exactly what it is. You've refined it to be super succinct and really polite, but also to the point and, not mucking around and fluffing so you don't doubt what you're doing. But if you do that, then you can just send it straight away. Also, if you are like that and you have these issues, it's really easy then to charge a card if you have it on file. Or it's in a direct debit. So if you have the ability to set up your services so you can do this, I would highly recommend doing this purely so you can deal with the cancellations. And if people ask you or they're hesitant about keeping credit card details on file, just say it's a lot easier for me to just process at the end of the day. I can auto send you receipts. We don't have to worry about you forgetting your card. It's just the way that you do the business. So I would really look at refining your payment structure and how you take payments in order to make it easier for you to implement these things. You could also then obviously have that deposit fee if you wanted to holding in their account. Now, the other thing that I think is also something you could do is giving people a warning. And I have done this before when I was a little bit slack at communicating the cancellation policy when I first was introduced to somebody or started working with them. I would be like, oh, I didn't really tell them there was a cancellation policy. So now I feel bad charging them. And I think it's really important that maybe you communicate to someone that you have a cancellation policy, but so let's rewind that. If this was me and they cancelled and I felt bad and I didn't know what to say and I understood their scenario but felt like I wasn't ready to implement this yet or hadn't told them about the policy, I would say, hi, Jane. Sorry, Jane, whoever Jane is, I'm using you as an example today. I normally charge a cancellation fee for cancellations within a 24-hour window of your consult. However, because you have been quite reliable and you haven't done this before, I'm going to waive the fee for this cancellation. But however, in the future, this will be charged. So just wanted to let you know that. Let me know when you'd like to book your next consult. So I use that as like a warning. And then the next time they've been warned, they know you've warned them. So they can't deny it. So I feel like that are easy ways to actually implement that. Now, if you're still having a lot of problems, then I would really suggest working on this as a person because I think you just need a bit more confidence in actually being able to apply all of this. So yeah, hopefully this has helped you, given you some ideas about a cancellation policy, how to set it up properly, how to explain it to your client, communicate it, all the ins and outs of preventing them from canceling in the beginning, and then how to actually deal with it when that actually happens. Because I feel like if you do one thing well, then dealing with it after is a lot easier. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. And if you do decide to put one in place, feel free to let me know how it goes. But hopefully you've got some a bit more confidence about you knowing that a lot of other people do this. It's really common. It's also really common to struggle with this. And a lot of people do struggle with it, especially when you work for yourself and there is no middleman. So if you're finding it hard, know that you're not alone. There are a lot of other people there that are struggling. So it's just a matter of practicing it a little bit more, implementing it regularly, and then getting the confidence to continue doing that. And it does get easier. And if it doesn't get easier, it's usually because you're implementing it because you get sick of it and you don't care anymore. And you're just like, whatever. I've been there too where I just don't care. So yeah, respect your own time by implementing it. And people will respect yours. So there you have it. That is today's episode on cancellations. Hopefully you don't have any today, tomorrow, or the rest of the week, whenever you're listening to this. Thanks again for being here all the way to the end. Please share the show. If you want to give me a review, that's awesome. I'd love you to post a review or give me a 5-star rating. you want to, on whatever platform you listen to. But otherwise, stay tuned. I've got some really great episodes coming up in the next few, well, I only do twice a month, so the next couple of months, but I look forward to sharing them with you. Otherwise, have a fabulous day from wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.